What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to hit the notification bell and the subscribe button so YouTube can recommend this kind of content to you and people like you in the future. Today, I want to talk about something very serious. It's the situation currently happening in Africa, precisely in Niger. For those who haven't seen it, to have more context on the current situation that is currently happening on the continent, please make sure to hit this link right here to watch the previous video that I made about Niger. Today, it's a really bad day for Africa because the political dynamic currently happening on the continent is scary. Why is it scary? Because it reminds me of the setup of the Cold War. Whenever the Cold War was happening, the powers weren't in the continent fighting each other, right? They gave weapons to the partners on the continent and we fought each other. But I believe if we are not too careful with what is going on right now, the situation might be even worse than what we've ever seen in the past. For you to have a better understanding, let me give you a background story on ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, so that you can clearly understand the impact that if there was ever to have a conflict on the continent, this conflict would be one of the worst that we've ever seen. So for those who don't know, ECOWAS is basically all of the French-speaking countries that were colonized by France, and later on Nigeria and Ghana and some other English-speaking country joined. The issue is all of these countries in dark orange. The issue is all of these countries in dark orange are just tired of the colonizer, are just tired of neo-colonialism, and they want to fight for the emancipation of their people. So Guinea started, it was a coup. I don't support coups in Africa, but it depends on which side of the political spectrum you are. For the people of Cuba, Che Guevara was a revolutionary. But for the West, he was somebody who came through a coup. He was a vigilante. So depending on where you stand on the political spectrum, you then have a different view, either terrorist or the rebels, or if you are on the other side, revolutionary. When the French poor people during the French Revolution beheaded the king, they called it a revolution. When Gaddafi did the same for his country, they call it a coup. So we already know what side says what about who. So we don't have to go too deep into that matter. Let's focus on this map right here. This whole region in orange was ECOWAS. But now you can see that there are two blocks with Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and the other block led by Ivory Coast, Senegal, and all of the other countries. Nigeria and Ghana, not so much because they don't want to get involved into the Francophone African countries' issues like that. The issue is that the Niger people spoke and they said they don't want a puppet as a president. The puppet being the president that just got taken out by the coup leaders. That president who was selling his country. Can you imagine Niger being the first world reserve in uranium, which is a raw material which is needed by all of the big powers in the world? That country has the biggest reserve of that thing in the world. So the question is, why a country that has such a huge potential is still poor? So in the next video that I will show you, you will see how the French people, the Western powers, through the extended arm called ECOWAS, is trying to invade Niger and change the decision of the people. Again, I'm not really for coups, but in Africa, coups are not coups. There are liberation movement. Maybe in the past it hasn't worked, but this time, let's see what happened. The people of Niger spoke. So let's see. This is an African issue, and Africans have to deal with it. The issue here is that ECOWAS doesn't really have an army, okay? And the army of ECOWAS was the army of all of these Western countries. So now you don't have Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. So who's going to go fight? Nigerian people said they don't want to fight. The Nigerian parliament said they're not sending an army to invade a brother country. Algeria and other countries are supporting the revolution currently happening on the continent. So can you tell me, who do you think through ECOWAS will go ahead and invade Niger, just like they did in the Ivory Coast, just like they did in almost every other African countries? They disguise themselves under the facade of, oh, this is just ECOWAS, African people dealing with their own issue. But in reality, it's the French and the Western countries that are actually doing so. I saw that happening in the Ivory Coast. It was not the army of the Ivory Coast or the rebel who took down the previous president. I saw the French people, the French army, the French helicopters, the French planes. Those are the people who came and destabilized the whole region and put in place somebody they are able to manipulate better. So let's take a look at this video and you will understand how this political situation is potentially going to lead to another Cold War.
Such measures may include the use of force.
But it's the threat of direct intervention that has alarmed Niger's military. On Sunday, ECOWAS threatened to use force unless civilian rule was restored within a week. And coup leaders have accused France, which has thousands of troops in Niger, of plotting an attack. That's been denied by Paris. Neighbouring Mali and Burkina Faso, themselves governed by military juntas, have rallied around the officers who ousted President Bazoum.
We refuse to apply these illegal, illegitimate and inhumane sanctions against the people of Niger.
Before we go further, you heard the first guy. He said that political military sanction is what they're going to do. So they're going to go ahead and invade Niger. So the Burkina people, basically the bloc that I show you here, Mali, you hear then the Burkina people and Guinea people, they say, hey, if you go ahead and attack Niger, we will go to war against you. Isn't that a Cold War which is preparing itself? Those countries, I mean, to be fair with you, we tired of the Western nation being into our continent and putting themselves into our own internal affairs. We want them out and want to deal with our own issues. Okay? So I'm leaning more on the side of Guinea and Mali because although I don't support the coup in Niger, this is the decision of the Niger people. So you need to let them decide for their countries. But France, given that they need that uranium so much, they will not let this go. I mean, if the whole western part of Africa, the Francophone countries decide to get under the grip of France, France is just going to fall apart. Because what kind of resources do they have? They just benefit from a lot of colonial treaties that were signed back in the day by our forefathers. We didn't choose that. We didn't decide that. But the dynamic happening right now, the new generation don't want it anymore. Okay? So let's continue.
We warn that any military intervention against Niger will be considered as a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali.
The US hasn't announced any sanctions so far, instead offering Niger's military time to reverse course.
We haven't made a determination yet because it is still an ongoing fluid situation. It is clear that there has been an attempt to remove President Bazoum from office. It's not yet clear that attempt will ultimately be successful, so U.S. assistance hinges on continued democratic governance in Niger.
And if Niger's military isn't swayed by the exodus of much-needed aid, it'll likely be felt by the millions of people living in one of the world's poorest countries. Alex Beard, Al Jazeera.
Okay, Cameron, how...
All right. So that's a little bit of the situation happening right there. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think about the situation? Is France and the Western country, are they in the right by going and invading Niger? I don't believe so. And also, this is a call again to all of the black family and the black diaspora around the world. We need to start taking pride of ourselves and increasing our power into this world. Because if we don't do so, we're just never going to have a say into how this world is being governed. People will just come and step on us, do whatever they want to do with us. We're still going to stay poor. I mean, I don't understand how a continent that has so much resources, a continent that has so much people, bright people, young people, we're still struggling. How come a country like Niger, that has the biggest uranium reserve in the world, is still poor? How come we don't have a nuclear plant to power our nations? How come we don't have our own currencies? I will do another video on the currency of the CFA so you can have a better understanding of the situation with the CFA. But that's also another messed up situation. People, black people, we need to wake up. Until then, stay curious, stay seeking, and above all, be proud of being black. Until next time, make sure to subscribe to my channel so the YouTube algorithm can recommend this kind of videos to you in the future. Again, happy Black Day.